that people with autism tend to be attracted to art materials. I find that they do. And then there's the difference between being attracted to and using it as a means to communicate, and being attracted to and using it as a means to perseverate. And
that was a big word for me. Perseverate.
Perseverate.
Yes.
Perseverate meaning drawing in the same spot, or the difference between drawing a picture and pointing out and saying, this is me, and this is my mom, and this is my dad, as opposed to drawing circles over and over and over again when maybe they're at an age that they should be able to draw a typical person would be able to draw a human face and explain who it is. So drawing things in patterns or in the same spot over and over, which might be actually A, appealing, or B, soothing, or even stimulating, which sometimes people need stimulation. But I would say there's a space for that. But in art therapy, we do try, or at least I myself do try, to make the art communicative about more. Like, I mean, there's art, I'm just thinking for myself, there's art to do, like, doodling that's mindless, and then there's art that's, like, you're kind of trying to say something. And communicating. And I think there's a place for both, but I'm just thinking out loud, like, if I have a young person who is just perseverating for years, like, literally, like, likes to draw on the same spot, paint the same spot so they can push the paint through the paper for 2 or 3 years and doesn't grow to any other skills, I don't know that art therapy is the best treatment for that person. Maybe they just really like other things that an OT can work on. But not an art therapist. So I hope I can. That's a big statement.
Well, I think it's a really good point. I was gonna say that, I mean, if you were to look in, we as counselors look at the like diagnostic standards. So like the DSM-4 has very specific symptoms that lead to the diagnosis of autism. And so with soothing behavior and self-stimulating behavior, thus word perseveration, those are things that we are just attentive to because the community at large is dealing with them and handling and trying to figure out how to perhaps open someone up outside of ritualistic patterns. And so we don't want to hinder someone by providing them an experience where they can stay close to a ritual that becomes repetitious and thus almost obsessive. So
and isolates them more.
Exactly.
It doesn't really make them connect with anyone else.
It can show, they like art, but it's got to be another step.
Yeah. I mean, that in and of itself wouldn't indicate to me, wow, this person is, like, in an initial session, that wouldn't indicate to me, oh, this person's not going to do well. But I'd have to watch that over time and see if that's just, the way that anyone who walks into a therapy session might tap their foot or play with their fingers. I mean, it's just a thing that, an anxiety thing. But over time, you hope that goes away with comfort, and with familiarity. So I feel the same way about painting for paper. And I always have to remind myself that I might have myself things that I do that are innate and natural. So I think for people on the spectrum, I've heard a lot of psychiatrists, authors say, will somebody fully ever get off the spectrum? And that's been like the big kind of question. Is it more that we can push them as far as we can to the end of the spectrum, but that they might have certain anxious characteristics and behaviors with the hands and the mouth or tics that just might always happen, and as a culture we just have to get accustomed to that. I mean, I kind of think that could be the case, but I always, speaking of, let's just say the circles, like perpetually drawing one thing and not interest, I see that as, like, as a therapist, I would come in and engage with those circles and find a way to draw next to the person, maybe mimic what they're doing, and use that in the same way that if you're going to talk with a typical child over a traumatic car accident, you might sit with them and play with their toys for a second and, like, talk with them through their toys. I see it the same way with a child with autism. Okay, I'll play your game for a little while, and then I'm going to show you something else. And hopefully, the ideal would be to slowly introduce other things that are typical for that child. So if we're drawing a face, I'm hoping we're getting to people eventually, and then the houses and things that typical children are drawing. And then eventually, so it's a dance, as a therapeutic relationship is. You take a little bit of where they're coming from, you introduce a little more, and go back and forth on it.
And I've found that for some students, along with the counseling and therapeutic behavior of sitting next to someone and being in their world, is also in introducing new materials that are similar in the sense, perhaps, like with the circle. Let's try making circles with clay. Let's try making circles, maybe not with paint, but with, how are these marbles similar to your circles? A metaphor for something that is similar but different. And so I've seen that parallel, the parallel play and relationship to rapport building, as well as the introduction to new materials on the same theme and topic idea, being extremely helpful for students taking those kind of steps out of the gate with new experiences and new, relationships, and then, hopefully growing from there. If a student loves drawing the same thing over and over, let's try to make maybe, this one character you love to draw a puppet. Maybe this puppet now has a new friend and maybe they can communicate. So you move from, a 2D image on paper to puppet play and three-dimensional interactive characters. And so it's understanding how to kind of take where they're at as a starting point and grow together slowly.